All right, we're good, man. Wes, how you doing tonight? What's going on?
I'm doing well. I just got through getting my toddlers down, or I guess my wife did, to the house quiet, and so it's been a good day though.
Nice. So I haven't been back to Tahlequah in about 2 years. So I know it's growing like crazy. The new hospital is about to be finished and whatnot. And you're a tribal counselor for the tribe. So how's that going for you?
It's good. It's been busy. I've been on there since August, so definitely still learning and trying to get better and everyday improvements.
Is that a 2 year thing?
It's 4 year.
4 year? Okay. And so what were you doing before that?
I was a professional boxer.
So you left boxing. What made you want to do that? Why'd you leave?
You know, um, there were several aspects that to consider. Most important one was my family. We had a couple of daughters. Kind of sprung onto us all of a sudden, and it was exciting. It's something I want to focus on and be there for. And the training aspect of it, having to leave home for 6 weeks at a time, is just not something that I could bear. Being the kind of I couldn't do that. It's something we always wanted was a family, and then we had it. And I didn't want to be chasing a dream and leaving the family behind. The other big factor was I had an injury, and just kind of it's one of those things. Everyone has a shelf life. Uh, I feel like my shelf life was ending shorter than what it should have been, just because of some injuries that I'd had. That were kind of making it more difficult to rise to those big level training camps that I was needing to be in. But it was a family decision, and it was the right decision. So it's one of those things your heart always still wants to do. I think that goes for anybody that's in any kind of professional sport or anybody that's in a professional job. When you go to retire, there's always the sense that you can still do it, you still want to do it, and so that was kind of the reason why we ended it.
You trained in Florida, right?
Yeah, I trained in Florida. For most of my career, I trained for 2 fights in Houston.
Okay. So you would go out for 6 weeks, train, and then for a fight, and then you were back in Tahlequah. Just you
Now,
know.
that was back in tackle. So the end of my career, the beginning of my career, all the way up until the very end, we were living in Florida, and then, like I said, for about a year, we were in Houston.
Okay. So for a boxer, whenever you're not in camp for that 6 weeks, what are you doing for the most part? Are you just training and lifting by yourself, or how does that go?
Well, for the most part, most of my year, we stayed in the gym. I mean, we were ready to fight with any given time, and most of the time, we were ready within 2 weeks, because sometimes we'd just get a phone call that fight's happening and you're going to be on it, so you better be ready. Whenever you start working up the ladder and you start fighting some of your bigger name opponents, your training camps are a lot more intense, and you got to have some time for the body to recover. So generally, for a couple weeks after a fight, just kind of lay low, just walking around and keeping everything kind of loose, but giving it plenty of time to heal. I mean, you're having a lot of injuries that you don't know about when you're in training camp for that long, and then you start picking it back up and start getting in semi-ready mode, which is hitting the gym every day for a couple hours, being around the gym, and then once you get a estimated date of when you're going to fight, that's when you start ramping up and start getting people involved in the fight camp.
So I watch a lot of UFC and MMA. Boxing I watch sparingly, kind of the big fights, but it's always been interesting to me. Just something I haven't really fully gotten into as far as I don't know, being a huge fan. But the things that we like to talk about, or at least my brother and I, kind of behind the scenes stuff that people don't see, kind of the dirty work of boxing. And so, like for a boxer who like yourself, was that something you were doing full time, or were you also working on the side? Because I know a lot of the guys in the UFC and Bellator that are kind of up and coming. A lot of those guys are still like waiting tables on the side and
Yeah.
working jobs and then training at night. And even some of the bigger guys talk about that earlier in their careers. Is that something you did as well, or were you full time?
Man, I was fortunate enough that whenever we decided to do it, we made it into a profession. It wasn't something we were going to kind of dip our toes in. And being a little bit older, getting into the sport, I needed to dedicate every amount of energy that I had to it if I was going to compete at a high level. my wife, very successful businesswoman, and so that helped cover some of the costs of not having to go work myself whenever I turned pro. But when I was an amateur, yeah, we still worked and trained and went to Golden Gloves Nationals, still having a job. So.
And professionally, you were what? Yeah, I read online. Was it you were 20-2? Is that correct?
Yeah, 20-2.
And what about amateur wise? How many fights did you have there?
I had like 25 amateur fights, and I had a win record of like 20 and lost about 5 fights with an amateur.
So
So I
25.
didn't have a whole lot of amateur experience. Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of amateur experience. It was just very difficult to get. Oklahoma is not really. It's gotten a little better size wise, but for the most part, there wasn't a whole lot of boxing growing up around here. That's why I didn't get it until I was later. And then just trying to get amateur fights, we were driving all over the map to try to get fights lined up. And we were fighting guys that had, 100 amateur fights just to try to get a fight. And so that's the way, going and turning into being a pro, a lot of my learning experience had to do with just sparring, just because of the fact that, even some of my fights, I was still in there learning quite a bit, just because I didn't have a whole lot of amateur experience.
Yeah. So I assume when you're an amateur, you're not making a whole lot of money, and you're just trying to get pro, correct? Or is that not correct?
Yeah, you don't make any money as an amateur. That's why it's called an amateur. And you're just in there just getting hit just for the sake of it, I guess.
Sure. How do you know when you're ready to jump from amateur to professional, or how does that work exactly?
You don't have to have any amateur fights. You can go straight to being a pro. Bernard Hopkins, he was a very successful boxer. Won 3 different weight classes, I think, world titles, and he didn't have any amateur fights. Now he did fight in prison and have a prison fighting program going, so they don't tell you about that. But he didn't have any amateur fights, and he actually lost his first pro fight. And then goes on and becomes what he is, as being one of the most crafty boxers there was, in my opinion. But if you're going to do it, the best thing, the younger you are, the better you are, the more experience you get. Once you get to about 100 amateur fights, you see a lot of your world champions have had, somewhere around that amount of amateur fights. It's free experience. And for me, the way I gauged myself was I had some success, and within my second year, went to national Golden Gloves. So I feel like I was a real quick learner. And then Kevin Johnson happened to come to Tulsa, and him and I sparred. And he called me about a month later and asked me to be a sparring partner before he fought Vitaly Klitschko for the world title in Bern, Switzerland. So that was kind of like the deciding factor. It's like, okay, if I can be a training sparring partner for a guy who's fighting for the world title, then I can do this. And so it's just taking a leap of faith and putting myself out there to see if we can make it happen.
Sure, that's awesome. So when you started boxing as an amateur, did you do it with the intention to go pro, or was this kind of like a hobby for you? I guess how did you even get into it?
Man, decided not to go play college basketball, and was needing something to stay in shape, man. Needing something to do. Watched a few fights on TV as a kid growing up and loved it. I thought, man, listen, I fought a few times when I was in high school. I still got that punchiness to me, I think. And so went to the gym and just started training and had fun. And they said, hey, man, you spar this. I ain't scared of nobody. I'm in there spar with whoever you want me to. And so got in there and just had fun with it, man. It was a blast.
That must be nice to decide not to join a college sport and then pick up another sport and go pro in that. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely different for sure.
And that was in Tahlequah that you started doing that, or no?
No, I was in Tulsa. I moved to Tulsa when I was 20, and that's why I picked up boxing.
Nice. So I assume you miss it sometimes. Do you still train at all?
Yeah, I do. I mean, there's times whenever you're running or doing something to try to stay in shape, and for me, my life revolved around training, and it was work. It was prepping for a fight. So whenever I work out now, just to stay in shape, sometimes my mind has flashbacks of like, oh, I'm training for a fight. And so, you do miss it. You do start getting some of that aggression built up in me whenever I start training. And it kind of comes out in training, just to kind of work out. And so, yeah, there's times you miss it.
Do you still watch it much?
No, not really, man. I mean, um, the politics of the sport kind of left a sour taste in my mouth, and um, I just, for me, being where I was at in my position, being about a fight or two away from a world title shot, you seeing what you're seeing on TV, and you realize that you were there, you're on the cusp of being there. And so it makes it makes me a little bit upset because I see some of these guys that to me are still just bums, but they're able to fight for a world title because of the politics of the sport. And so that's just the reason why I don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. It's very political.
So I know a little bit about it, not a whole lot though, and a lot of people that might listen to this probably don't have any idea as well. So can you kind of delve into what you mean by the politics of the sport and kind of give us a little detailed look on that?
I mean, the easiest way of putting it is everybody knows the name Don King, and Don, to his credit, did a tremendous. I mean, probably one of the best known promoters in boxing there was in history.
And this was Tyson's guy, right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was around at the end of Muhammad Ali's day. He's the one that his claim to fame was making the Muhammad Ali George Foreman fight in Zaire, and he did it. And he knew how to sell a fight. He could take a bum off the street, and he could take a polished up fighter, and then make those two people and their fan base hate each other so much that people had to tune in and watch it. And he started a pay-per-view, and he made fighters a lot more money than what they were worth, and that was great for him. But in doing so, other promoters started trying to do the same thing, and what they'll end up doing is they'll take a guy and they want to turn him into a world-class fighter, so they pay a lot of money to build his record up, to pad his record. They're paying fighters to fight him that are just bums. They're 0-10 fighting him who has 20 fights. Deontay Wilder's career was built like that. Even Mike Tyson, he had a lot of money behind him, even though he had a great pedigree as an amateur. They put a lot of money behind you, and they have to get that cash cow. So they make sure that even if he has a bad night on the scorecard, he still is going to win. I mean, and so the politics of it just gets in your head. You realizing you're having to fight not just the fighter, but you're also having to beat him in other ways because of the political side of it. I mean, I've been, paid 0.1% of what someone who had less of a record than me fought the same opponent, just because it's politics. And so it just put a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
And, it was the part of the boxing sport that I didn't hate, that I hated, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I mainly watched the big fights and loosely then, but like for example the Triple G and Canelo fight, I
Right.
read a lot of sports and follow that, and people say that was, I guess it was when Canelo they had a draw, I believe, was that what it was? And if you said you didn't keep up, I guess you may not know, but
yeah, the first fight was a draw.
Apparently it was Triple G won the fight pretty bad, but they wanted the rematch, and then I guess they said that a lot of boxing fan bases from Mexico and did not want Canelo to lose, so they kind of called it a draw and gave him a rematch. So
right,
and so that stuff happens on pretty much every level of fighting. For
boxing. Yeah, I mean it happens on every level. I mean you can, a lot of these, when you first have a few fights, and you're working and you're meeting a few connections, and we fought some in North Carolina, and you fight some in Oklahoma, and all those are good building states to help get your confidence up as a young fighter fighting guys who don't have a great record. Boxing commissions are kind of relaxed with letting those fights happen, and you'll see some things. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, so I know you started talking about Don King and kind of how the trickle down effect for that happened, but I read about it. I don't know if it's true, and I think I remember seeing like a promotional commercial or video for you at the Hard Rock back in Tulsa. But you did train with Mike a little bit, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, so Mike had a company called Iron Mike Promotions. They were looking to sign a heavyweight. The guy they were looking at was an Olympic boxer from Cuba, and so I came in there to spar with him. And like in the second round, I like just knocked the dude cold out in sparring. So obviously they started looking at me a little bit. Mike Tyson happened to be there and watch it, and so we fought once in Mesquite, Texas, and then him and I fought. We had a thing up at Hard Rock, and then Al Heyman, who's Floyd Mayweather's manager and promoter, started buying up a lot of promotional companies, and one of them was Iron Mike's. He bought all the fighters out. So I hadn't signed with Mike yet, so I didn't sign with Al either on that kind of a deal that they had going on there. So yeah, Mike and I, he's a cool dude.
Yeah, he seems like I'm a big fan, and I read his book about 6 months ago. I don't know if you read it or not, but it's pretty wild. So,
yeah.
How much time did you actually get to spend with him?
Not a whole lot, man. He'd come into town in Florida and stay a couple days, and then like before the fights, we'd usually see each other and hang out a little bit for the fights. That was about it. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have a misconception of him because a lot of the people I follow or read about said that he's one of the nicest guys and just super chill. And of course, he's different now than he was when he was in his 20s.
I think one thing that's a big misconception about a lot of fighters, because I've had I've had the chance to hang out with a lot of different world champions and be around them, and I mean, most of them, they're just as calm and relaxed as an everyday person walking down the street. You just don't know that person can really mess you up if you start to fight with the wrong guy. That's just the way it is because you have the kind of confidence of that person. So why are you going to just be boastful around for nothing? A lot of the UFC imagery out there is these wild, crazy fighters, and they are a little bit got a couple extra screws loose than boxers. But man, fighters like our boxing guys, man, they're pretty cool.
So who out of all the people you fought, trained with, sparred with, and that who would you say is the best boxer to you?
Man, that's a good question. I don't know. Sparring wise, I never really had anybody that had my number. So yeah, that's tough. That's a tough call. It really is. I never really sparred anybody that I could handle. So, most guys had all their own little different things that they were good at. They were a little crafty here or there. Yeah, man, it's a tough one. Beats me.
When you were with Mike, did he ever get in there and spar with you guys or do any light training, or was he all over that?
No, man, he was out of shape. He was those fat pictures before he's not getting in shape for apparently these fundraising fights that he's got going on, apparently.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because, I saw when he started doing some of his speaking stuff and then talking more, I think he had a documentary on Netflix I watched, and he was really, really fat, like you said, and then now there's these videos and Instagram photos of him coming out, and he's super ripped and jacked. And then apparently he's talking about fighting in the bare knuckle fighting league, and then boxing some other guys. So do you think he'll actually do that or no?
Man, I don't know. He's in shape for a reason. I think. I think he didn't have a care in the world, except for a majority of boxers have financial problems.
Yeah,
which he did. If a lot of boxers come out of retirement to fight because of that. I don't think that's the case, but it's interesting to say the least to see somebody that's 50 years old getting back ripped like that, like they're gonna do something. So
yeah, well, in his book, he talks about his financial struggles and filing bankruptcy and was in real trouble. So, and I don't know, like I said, I don't know if you kept up with it much, but that the bare knuckle fighting league. I don't know how true it is, but they said they promised him $20 million if he would fight for them, and I don't know where they would get that money, but that's what they said.
Yeah.
So, but me and my brother were talking about that. We'd love to see him fight because we never really got to, but I don't know how fun it would be to watch a 53-year-old man fight because that could be kind of scary.
Right. Be good for about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Well, because
you could probably get a person maybe 2 minutes, maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes probably.
Yeah, that's kind of scary for someone that old, man, to take those kind of blows to the head.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. They're probably not going to put him in. If he was, they're not going to put him anybody in there besides just a stiff, just a bum, or something like that, just to go in there and knock out, and that'd be it.
Right. Yeah, there was about, I want to say it was a year or so ago, there was some UFC fighters, Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz. They fought for the third
Yeah,
time, but they were both really, really old, and it was real bad. It was kind of sad. It was
yeah.
ended quick, like you said. So, but you don't ever do, you never thought about doing any type of training for, I don't know, in Tahlequah, like opening up a gym or something, or is that something you're not really interested in?
No, yeah. I mean, that's something that I've always wanted to do. I thought, at some point when I was fighting still, I thought, man, so I'd like to open up a gym that I would train at, and then before I leave training camp, I'd leave here, or maybe even bring some training camps here if I had a world title fight. Maybe I'd do training camp on in my hometown. So the idea has always been there to open a gym. I think a lot of people would like to use a facility, a boxing gym, and then I think you can write a curriculum that a lot of people would enjoy doing. A lot of circuit training stuff that I could implement and help out with. Getting ready, we when you train the level I've trained at, you are able to get trained by some of the best strength and conditioning coaches that are out there, some of the best boxing coaches out there, period. And I think those are some of the cool things that I could bring to a gym if I open one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've taken a couple boxing classes, just a handful whenever they're available, because where I'm at is kind of hard to get some too, and it's a lot of fun. Like you said, if anything, circuit training or more cardio focused. But
Right,
um, I know there's been a couple of MMA gyms in Tahlequah, but they kind of come and go, and of course that's what happens in a small town too. It's kind of hard for some of that stuff to stick. So,
right.
but as far as what you're doing now with the tribe, is that something that you're trying to do for the rest of your career, or?
I mean, it's something I wanted to get involved in, regardless if I was continuing to box or not. I seen a need for some change in the tribe, the political aspect of how it was being governed, and it's what gave me the reason to do it. Was I have two girls. I got a dad who's getting older, and I grew up, um, without a whole lot when I was younger, and I had friends and family that just didn't have anything. They struggled, and then here you have a tribe. And when I was a kid growing up, didn't have very much finances, but now they're a $2 billion industry that they own. But yet those resources and that financial aid that it's supposed to be helping them hasn't quite reached those people, and so that's the reason why I decided to get in politics. Is hopefully change that.
And that's something you've enjoyed so far?
Yeah, I have. I've seen a lot of people get help that's needed help, and you try to come up with ideas and talk to people and try to figure out solutions to prevent those things from happening again, and then kind of any sort of new policies or changes that could make great effects to these people out here.
Yeah, man. I know Tahlequah is continuously growing and always growing, and new projects are coming up. Is there anything that's going on that you got planned in the next 1 to 2 years that is newsworthy? Like I said, for someone who hasn't been back in about a year or so.
I mean, we definitely have the school, OSU Medical School, getting built here. We have the new clinic that was built. Um, we'll see what happens with C&B and them growing the casino that's in town. They've tried to put a shopping mall plaza there. So, there's nothing that's planned or concrete or anything that I know of that's trying to be changed in the area. There's things that I'd like to see happen. And hopefully maybe those things could be possibilities in the future.
Yeah, I thought when they originally were building the new casino that they were gonna, and they may do this, I don't know, but make it a lot like the Hard Rock in the events that, or in the instance that you could plan events like small concerts or the MMA or boxing matches and stuff like that. But they're not doing those there, are they?
Well, they have a called Pachoda House. It's just a flat open area where you could have events if you'd wanted to. But they haven't brought anything there yet. They had like one of the Bassmasters Elite Series weighed in there, but I don't think they've ever had any concerts there yet. And of course now the whole COVID thing's taken over, and
Yeah.
it's reshaped how countries or how our country just gets together and congregates. Period. So who knows when concerts are going to resume?
Yeah, definitely. I got some concert tickets in August and September, and really hoping they pan out. But I don't know. It's kind of weird right now.
Yeah.
So, well, man, I appreciate you coming on. I don't have a whole lot other than that. Just kind of wanted to chat and learn a little more about boxing and kind of your past and whatnot, and some good stories. And I really appreciate you. So,
Hey
uh,
man, appreciate you being on and good luck with the podcast. It's definitely a cool thing to start growing when you're starting off in a new thing like this. I'm glad to be a part of it. There's a lot of cool people out there. You run into a lot of cool stories and dialogues just grow from there. So
yeah, man. Like I said, I appreciate it, and I'll get you this back whenever I get it edited. I'm still working on the technology of it, the editing skills. But it's good to chat with you, man. I appreciate it.
all right, man, sounds good. We appreciate it and be safe up there.
Yeah, you too. I'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, man, we'll see you.